Well, hello. I hope you guys are having a great day. It's absolutely beautiful outside in the 70s and sunny, and my nephew and I have been working outside cleaning up around the house, and it has been a good day. So a sweet friend of mine asked me if I would share a recipe for country style steak. So I'm going to do that today, and my husband is so excited because he loves country style steak, and so he's ready for this meal. So we'll get started. All right, this is cubed steak, and it's been run through a cuber at the grocery store to make it more tender. So this is what I'm going to use for the country style steak. Now I'm just going to wet this a little bit so the flour will stick to it better, and then we're going to flour it. Now everybody has their own method of coating stuff in flour. I like to do mine in a Ziploc bag. I think it covers it better. So I'm just going to drop that steak into my bag like that, and the flour on it will make the water on it will make the flour stick to it better. So shake it around. Now I'm not going to season it yet because I'm going to season it after it gets in the pan. And you can see I've got my big stainless steel skillet heating over here on about number 5. When it gets good and hot, that's when I'll add my oil. So I'm just going to put a few more pieces of steak in here and shake it around enough to fill up the pan at one time. Now this is just some leftover oil that I had used the other night to fry some potatoes, and I strained all the little bits out of it so that I could reuse it. And I'll add a little bit. You just need enough oil in the bottom of the pan so that you can brown that steak really well. Now remember how you test your pan to see if it's hot is you take just a little bit of flour and sprinkle it in, and it's not quite ready yet because it's not sizzling. Wash my hands off a little bit. When my son was a teenager, his best friend came over for Sunday lunch one day. We were having cube steak. It wasn't a country style steak, but it was just fried cube steak with mashed potatoes and gravy. And so he looked down at the meat, and he looked over at Tad and like, what is that stuff? And Tad said, it's cube steak, man. He said, have some, you're gonna love it. And so Benny said, well, that's some ugly steak. But he tried it and he liked it. So ever since then, we've called cube steak ugly steak. So let's see now if our pan's about ready. Yep, it's starting to sizzle a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is just shake the excess flour off of my cube steak and lay it in the pan. And we're not going to fry it done. We're just going to brown it really well on both sides. And I don't want to crowd the pan too much because I want it to be able to brown really well. So we'll come back when it's ready to flip. Alright, it's time to turn our cube steak over and let it brown on the other side. But you know, I told you I was going to wait to season it. This is Morton's Nature's Seasoning, and it has salt, pepper, onion flavor, garlic flavor. It's such a good seasoner. So I use that because I think it gives it a lot of flavor. And that looks great. We're just going to brown it just a little bit on this side, and then we're going to take it out and do the next batch. Okay, so I've got our second batch of steak in the pan. I've got it browned. You can see it's not near done on the inside, but it's fine. It's browned, and those brown bits are going to stay in the bottom of the pan, and that's going to help season the steak. So I'm going to take that out now, and I've probably got just a little bit too much oil in this pan. All I'm going to need is about 2 or 3 tablespoons, so I'm going to pour some of that off. And I'm just going to leave a couple of tablespoons of oil in that pan, just enough so that I can put some flour in there and make us a little bit of a thickener. So I'm going to put a couple tablespoons of flour in there. And then I'm going to take my whisk and get all those little brown bits off the bottom. Now, like you know, before when we made gravy, this is making a roux, but we're not going to put milk in it and make gravy. We're going to leave that in the pan just as a thickener. And now we're going to put our steak back in. All of it. And we're going to cover it with water. Probably going to be enough. Make sure none of it is sticking in the bottom. And when that liquid, the water, comes back up to a boil, it is going to start thickening because of that flour that was on the steak and what we added to the drippings. So I'm going to let that come back up to a boil. Then I'm going to get my big lid, and I'm going to turn it down and put the lid on it and turn it down. See, it's already starting to boil. I'm going to turn it down to about 1, and I'm going to let it cook for 30 minutes, and then we'll check it. Well, it's been about 40 minutes, and I've had this steak just simmering on low. It's been on about 2 on my burner with a lid on it, and I've stirred it a couple of times just to make sure that the gravy wasn't thickening too much that it stuck to the bottom of the pan. But now we're going to take the lid off, and I'm going to show you how this water turned into this beautiful gravy. So look at that gravy. It's thickened up because of that flour, and still bubbling, and the steak is tender. Cooking it at that low heat for that long with the lid on it makes the steak really tender. So now is the time to taste it to make sure that it doesn't need any more salt or seasoning. I've already done that. But one last little trick that I do, and this is not absolutely necessary. This is fine just like it is. This is country style steak. But I use something called Gravy Master. There's also a product called Kitchen Bouquet. And this just gives it a little bit of a rich, deep flavor to the gravy. And it also makes the gravy a little bit darker. So I'm just going to put about a half a teaspoon. That's all it'll take. And I'm going to drizzle it around in that gravy. Now I want you to look how much that tiny little bit changes the color of that gravy. It doesn't thicken it, but it gives it a richness and color restaurant style, country style steak would have. And that's all there is to it. And to my dear friend Angie, I hope you try this. It's easy. I know you can do it, and God bless you. I wanted to mention one more thing to you guys about this recipe. The steak has no gluten in it, but the flour does. But if you want to try to coat your steak with this gluten-free flour and do it the same method, I think it would be gluten-free. Now, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but so our country style steak is ready. I'm going to serve Eddie's plate for him. Let's get you down here where you can see it. He's going to have some green beans. I'm going to have stewed okra with mine. My grandsons are here, and I asked them if they wanted some country style steak for dinner. And the 10-year-old said, "No, thank you, ma'am. Gravy is not my favorite condiment." So want just a few more beans than that. And that is one of his favorite dinners. Now, I didn't make homemade biscuits tonight, but these good old store-bought canned biscuits will do just fine. You guys have a great evening. Thanks for watching.